Welcome to my chat. Today I'm going to start with chapter 3 of Judith and possibly on to chapter 4. After each chapter, as you know, by now I'm going to read the Good News translations to provide more clarity and edification to the chapter. Now expound on whatever I feel is need to be expounded on. So with that, let's get started. Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Kal Halal, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Wahar, Rakwah Kwadash. All praises, honor, and glory and power to Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, our Lord and Savior. Double honors and respect to the elders, apostles, and apostles of Great Millstone, and additional honors to prophets and teachers of Great Millstone, which are taught and is still teaching this truth. Great respect to fellow believers, the Akam and the Akwath and the remnant of Israel, which includes the 144,000 and 1/3 mixed multitude, promised mercy and salvation to our Lord. And once again, I'm not a member of Great Millstone. However, I claim the Great Millstone because they have the 100% truth, and the Lord willing, I may one time be worthy to be part of that ministry, but the Lord, if the Lord sees fit. But until then, I'm gonna cling, and hopefully that I'll be accepted among the brotherhood. My efforts be accepted among the brotherhood, and Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai. So let's get started. Share screen. Judith, chapter 3, verse 1. So they sent ambassadors unto him to treat of peace, saying, Behold, we the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, the great king, lie before thee. Use us as shall be good in thy sight. Behold, our houses and all our places and all our fields of wheat and flocks and herbs and all the lodges of our tents lie before thy face. Use them as it pleases thee. Behold, even our cities and inhabitants thereof are thy servants. Come and deal with them as seemeth good unto thee. So the men came to Holofernes, and declared unto him after this manner. Then came he down toward the sea coast, both he and his army, and set garrisons in high cities, and took out of them chosen men for aid. So they in all the country round about received them with garlands and dances and with timbrels. Yet he did cast down their frontiers and cut down their groves, for he had decreed to destroy all the gods of the land, that all nations should worship Nebuchadnezzar. Only then in all tongues and tribes shall call him as God. Also he came over against Esdraelon, near unto Judea, over along the great strait of Judea, and he pitched between Geba and Synthopolis, and there he tarried a whole month, that he might gather together all the carriages of the army. I'm chopping through his name, Nebuchadnezzar. The Good News Translation says it did, but let's see if I can't. There it is. Nebuchadnezzar. Why is it spelled different in Judith and in here and in the new Good News Translation? Okay, I'm going to pronounce it as such just for ease, Nebuchadnezzar, because that's how I recognize it. Right, let's go back. All right. All right, so with that, let's go right into the Good News Translation. Judith, chapter 3. All these nations sent a peace delegation to King Nebuchadnezzar with this message. We remain loyal to you, great King Nebuchadnezzar. We are ready to serve you and obey any command that you may wish to give us. Our buildings, all our land and our wheat fields, our livestock, and our tents are at your disposal. Use them in any way you wish. Our people will be your slaves, and you may use our towns as you please. After the peace delegation had brought this message, Holofernes led Nebuchadnezzar's army down to the Mediterranean coast. He stationed guards in all the walled towns and selected certain men in each of the towns as reserve troops. The people in the towns and in the surrounding countryside welcomed Holofernes by wearing wreaths of flowers and dancing to the beat of drums. But Holofernes destroyed all their places of worship and cut down their sacred trees. He had been ordered to destroy all the gods of the land so that all the nations and tribes would worship only Nebuchadnezzar and pay to him as a god. Then Holofernes passed through Jezreel Valley, Dothan, which faces the main ridge of the mountains of Judah, and set up camp between Geba and Synthopolis. He stayed there for a month in order to get supplies for his army. This is fairly short chapters. Judith, chapter 4. Now the children of Israel that dwelt in Judea heard all that Holofernes, chief captain of Nebuchadnezzar, king of the Assyrians, had done to the nations, and after what manner he had spoiled all their temples and brought them to naught. They were exceedingly afraid of him and were troubled for Jerusalem and for the temple of the Lord their power. But they were newly returned from the captivity, and all the people of Judea were lately gathered together, and the vessels and the altar and the house were sanctified after the profanation. Therefore they sent unto all the houses of Samaria and the villages, and to Betharon and Belman and Jericho, and to Toba and Isora, and to the valley of Salem, and possessed themselves beforehand of all the tops of the hill mountains, and fortified the villages that were in them, and laid up the victuals for provisions of war, for their fields were of late reaped. Also Joacim the high priest, which was in these days in Jerusalem, wrote to them that dwelt in Bethulia and Bethomethim, which is over against Esdraelon, toward the open country near Dothan, charging them to keep the passages of hill country, for by them were an entrance into Judea, and it was easy to stop them that would come up, because the passage was straight for 2 men at the most. And the children of Israel did as Joacim the high priest had commanded them, with the ancients of old, the people of Israel, with the ancients of all the people of Israel, which dwelt in Jerusalem. Then every man of Israel cried to the Most High, Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, with great fervency and with great vehemency did they humble their souls, both they and their wives and their children and their cattle, and every stranger and hireling, and their servants brought with money, put sackcloth upon their loins. Thus every man and woman and the little children and inhabitants of Jerusalem fell before the temple and cast ashes upon their heads and spread out their sackcloth before the face of the Lord. Also they put sackcloth among the altar and cried to Yahweh, Hashem Abshai, power of Israel, all with one consent earnestly, that he would not give their children for a prey, and their wives for a spoil, and the cities of their inheritance to destruction, and the sanctuary to profanation and reproach, and for the nations to rejoice at. So the Most High heard their prayers and looked upon their afflictions, for the people fasted many days in all Judea and Jerusalem before the sanctuary of the Lord Almighty. And Joacim the high priest and all the priests that stood before the Lord, and they that wished ministered unto the Lord, had their loins girt with sackcloth, and offered the daily burnt offerings with the vows and free gifts of the people, and had ashes on their mitres, and cried unto the Lord with all their power, that he would look upon all the house of Israel graciously. The Good News Translation. The people of Judah heard what Holofernes, the commander of King Nebuchadnezzar's army, had done to the other nations. They heard how he had looted and destroyed all their temples, and they were terrified of him and afraid of what he might do to Jerusalem and to the temple of the Lord, their power. They had only recently returned home to Judah from exile and had just rededicated the temple and its utensil and its altar after they had been defiled. So they sent a warning to the whole region of Samaria and to the towns of Kona, Beth Horon, and Belmain, Jericho, Chaba, and Asora, and to Salem Valley. They immediately occupied the mountaintops, fortified the villages of the mountains, and stirred up food for preparation for war. It was fortunate that they had recently harvested their fields. The high priest Joachim, who was in Jerusalem at that time, wrote to the people in the towns of Bethalia and Bethsomithium, which faced Jezreel Valley near Dothan. He ordered them to occupy the mountain passage which led into the land of Judah, where it would be easy to withstand an attack, since the approach was only wide enough for two people at a time to pass. The Israelites carried out the orders given to them by the high priest Joachim and the council which met in Jerusalem. The leaders of Israel prayed earnestly to the Most High and fasted. They put on sackcloths, they and their wives, their children, and their livestock, and every resident foreigner, every slave and hired laborer. They also covered the altar with sackcloth. Then all the men, women, and children in Jerusalem lay face down on the ground in front of the temple. They lay there in the Lord's presence, all in sackcloth, their heads covered with ashes. They joined together in earnest prayer to the Lord, to Yahweh Hashem of Israel, begging him not to let their children be captured, their wives carried off, or their hometowns destroyed. They pleaded with him not to give Gentiles the satisfaction of destroying the temple and dishonoring it. The Lord heard their prayers and saw their distress. Many days the people of Judah and Jerusalem continued their fast in front of the temple of the Lord of Almighty. It's like the Lord Almighty. The high priest Joachim, the priests, and all others who serve in the Lord's temple wore sackcloth when they offered the daily burnt offering, the freewill offerings to the people, and the offerings made to fulfill a vow. They put ashes on their turbans and cried out in prayer to the Lord, begging him to have mercy on the whole nation. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and read chapter, what am I up to? What is this? I'm going to read chapter 5 as well. I was trying something new. Okay, just do it like this. My transition is terrible. Chapter 5, verse 1. Then was it declared to Holofernes, the chief captain of the army of Assur, that the children of Israel had prepared for war, and had shut up the passages of the hill country, and had fortified all the tops of the high hills, and had laid impediments in the campaign countries. Wherewith he was very angry, and called all the princes of Moab, and the captains of Ammon, and all the governors of the sea coast. And he said unto them, Tell me now, ye sons of Canaan, who these people is that dwelleth in the hill country, and what are the cities that they inhabit, and what is the multitude of their army, and what is their power and strength, and what king is set over them, or captain of their army? And why have they determined not to come and meet me more than all the inhabitants of the west? Then said Achor, the captain of the sons of Ammon, Let my Lord now hear a word from the mouth of thy servant, and I will declare unto thee the truth concerning these people, which dwelleth near thee, and inhabiteth the hill countries. There shall no lie come out of the mouth of thy servant. These people are descendants of the Chaldeans, and they sojourn heretofore in Mesopotamia, because they would not follow the gods of their fathers, which were in the land of Chaldea. For they left the way of their ancestors and worshipped the God of heaven, the God whom they knew. So they cast them out from the face of their gods, and they flew into Mesopotamia and sojourned there many days. Then their God commanded them to depart from the place where they sojourned, and to go into the land of Canaan, where they dwelt, and were increased with gold and silver, and with very much cattle. But when a famine covered all the land of Canaan, they went down into Egypt, and sojourned there, while they were nourished, and became there a great multitude, so that one could not number their nation. Therefore the king of Egypt rose up against them, and dealt subtly with them, and brought them low and laboring in brick, and made them slaves. Then they cried unto their God, and he smote all the land of Egypt with incurable plagues. So the Egyptians cast them out of their sight, and the Most High dried the Red Sea before them, and brought them to Mount Sinai and Kadesh Barn, and cast forth all that dwelt in the wilderness. So they dwelt in the land of the Amorites, and they destroyed their strength, all them of Esbon, and passing over Jordan, they possessed all the hill country. And they cast forth before them the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Jebusites, and the Shemite, and all the Girgashites, and they dwell in that country many days. All these are all Haman. These are Haman people. Or I should say, Haman tribe. Tribe of Haman. Ham. Hamitic tribes. So that's Ham. And whilst they sinned not before their power, they prospered because their power has iniquity. The God that hath iniquity with them, but they that depart from the way which he appointed them, they were destroyed in many battles, very sore, and were led captive to the land that was not theirs, and the temple of their power was cast to the ground, and their cities were taken by the enemies. But now are they returned to their power, and are come up from places where they were scattered, and have possessed Jerusalem, where their sanctuary is, and are seated in a hill country, for it was desolate. Now therefore, my Lord and Governor, if there be any error against these people, and they sin against their God, let us consider that this shall be their ruin, and let us go up, and we shall overcome them. But if there be no iniquity in their nation, let my Lord now pass by, lest the Lord defend them, and their God be for them, and we become a reproach before all the world. And when Achor had finished these sayings, all the people standing around about the tent murmured, and men of Holofernes, and all that dwelt by the seaside in the Moab spake that he should kill him. For say they, we will not be afraid of the face of the children of Israel. For lo, it is a people that have no strength, no power for a strong battle. Now therefore, Lord Holofernes, we will go up. They shall be a prey to be devoured of all thine army. Now, this verse describes the children of Israel to a T. The Native Americans, the so-called African Americans, and Hispanics. We have absolutely no power in this nation. We're not sovereign. We're a spiritual people. We're not carnal. We don't have any sovereignty. So that describes us to a T at this point in time. I want to jump to Salaki, I mean, I'm saying Saluki. Where am I at? Okay, I'm down here. Judith, chapter 5. When Holofernes, the Syrian general, heard that the Israelites had prepared for war, blocked the mountain passages, fortified the mountaintops, and set up roadblocks in the plains, he boiled over with anger. He called together all Moabite rulers, all the Ammonite generals, and all the governors of the region along the Mediterranean coast, and said to them, "You live in Canaan, so tell me about the people who live in these mountains. What cities do they occupy? How large is their army? What is the source of their power and strength? Who is the king who leads their army? Why have they alone of all people in the West refused to come out and surrender to me?" Then Atwire, the leader of the Ammonites, answered, "Holofernes, sir, if you will please be so kind as to listen to me, I will tell you the truth about these people who live in the mountains near your camp. I will not lie to you. These people are the descendants of some Babylonians who abandoned the ways of their ancestors in order to worship the God of heaven. Finally, they were driven out of their land because they refused to worship their ancestors' gods. Then they fled to Mesopotamia, where they settled and lived for a long time." And according to this verse, as you can see, the Moabite, he's assuming that the children of Israel were Babylonians because we were captured in that land. We were in that land under that sovereignty. So let's say he assumes that we were Babylonians, because he obviously don't know. Yeah. Afterwards, that God told them to leave Mesopotamia and go to the land of Canaan, where they settled and became very rich in gold, silver, and livestock. Later, when a famine struck all the land of Canaan, these Israelites, as they are later called, went down to Egypt and stayed there as long as there was enough food while they were there. They became a large nation with so many people that they could not be counted. So the king of Egypt turned against them. He took advantage of them and put them to work making bricks. He oppressed them and made them slaves. But they prayed to their God, and he sent disasters that left the Egyptians helpless. When the Egyptians drove out of the country, their God dried up the Red Sea in front of them, and then led them along the way to Sinai and Kadesh Barnea. The Israelites drove out all the people who lived in the southern part of Canaan, occupied the land of Amorites, and wiped out the people of Heshbon, crossed the Jordan River, and took possession of the entire mountain region. They drove out the Canaanites and Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Shechemites, and all the Girgashites. The Israelites have now lived in these mountains for a long time. Their God hates wickedness, so as long as they did not sin against him, they prospered. But when they disobeyed him, they suffered heavy losses and many wars and were finally taken away as captives to a foreign country. The temple of their God was leveled, and their cities were occupied by their enemies. But now they have returned to their God. They have come back home from the country where they have been scattered. They have again taken possession of the city of Jerusalem, where their temple is, and have resettled in the mountains that have remained uninhabited. Sir, if these people are now sinning against their power, even unknowingly, and if we can be sure that they are guilty of some offense, we can successfully attack them. But if they had not displayed the law of their God, their power, then you should leave them alone, or he will defend them, and we will be disgraced before the whole world. When Achua had finished the speech, all the people standing around the tent began to protest. Halifax own senior officials, as well as the Moabites and those from the Mediterranean coast, demanded that Achua be put to death. Why should we be afraid of these Israelites, they asked. They are weak. They can't put up a strong defense. Let's go ahead, General Halifax. Your great army will slaughter them easily. And so it begins. The next chapter is going to highlight just how the Chaldeans is going to misjudge the Israelites and their power, as you see. But I'm not going to give you any nuggets until the next time when we get together. So, but I will leave with you my disclaimers. Okay, we all know that the things in the Middle East is heating up. It's getting hot, and the propaganda is swirling all over every place. On one side of the story is being really heard as we expected, because the side of the story that we hear are from the particular people that control the narrative. And if you hear anything about the other side of the story, is that somebody is being fired, hushed up, or being called a liar for even mentioning what's going on against the other side of these, the other people that's involved in the conflict, So, and all these are signs that's going to lead to the third woe. But before that, you need to prepare your spirit, because the MOTB is right around the corner. Every class I'm going to mention MOTB so you get it in your mind. Revelation 13:16 is clear, and the events that are opening up now, showing us who or what the MOTB is clear. If you can't see it, you weren't meant to see it, then you're going to be missile food, okay? As the prophets say. So Jacob's trouble is right around the corner. The famine of the word and the famine of food, all these things are coming to us fast. So if you haven't repented by now, you better, because the mercy window is closing. So with that, I pray that you receive some edification and enjoy my soliloquy. Until next time, stay prayed up. Peace be unto Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Shai, to the hopeful elect, and to all those, to those that haven't been aware yet. I pray that that your turn your life or commit to this doctrine so that you can be awakened. But I know it's not your choice. It's between the Lord and you. Anyway, I'm going to close out here. Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Kwame Yashala, and the Bible Bar. So, till next time, Shalom.